I mean, how many Five Nights at Freddy's characters could there be?
The name of Matt comes from a couple different interpretations here. I wanted to get puppet, I wanted to get mime, and I wanted to get dark type because I wanted to possibly that again, that shiny like grass kind of anti shadows. So what I also do very much like with this. I brought in that dark Freddy and Gangle. So in the games, as you progress through the games, there's that extra level of difficulty.
Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm the Thesterninator, and today we are taking another leap into Five Nights at Freddy's characters as Pokemon. Today, working with our grass type, the best type. I mean, take Rowlet for example. Perfect little orb boy. And of course, we can't forget Turtwig, one of my favorite starters of the series. But of course, Trico holds a special place in my heart. And while I'm sure water and fire starters will always have their merit, grass type is truly the best starter type. And so I am pleased as punch to be able to talk to you today about our Five Nights at Freddy's region's grass starter, Roxanne Wolf. While most starters have a certain energy to them, whether that be kind of rash or shy or energetic, I knew that this one had to be envious, had to be vain, and so I wanted to capture that even starting out with its first design. Whenever you pick a starter, you pick them usually based on their personality, or at least I do. And most of the grass types, I think, just have a very cool personality. Like I said, Trico's one of my favorite Pokemon, whether that be because he just has a really fun design, or when he was introduced into the Pokemon anime, he was known as like the coolest dude around, even had a little toothpick in his mouth to show that he was this series version of the Fawns. So I wanted to capture the same type of energy here. I wanted something that felt like it had personality to it. And when you're working with a character based on Roxanne Wolf, that personality should be a little jealous, envious, angry, and I wanted to capture that while still maintaining this much cuter demeanor, especially for the starter's first form. I also knew that translating some of these other starters into Five Nights at Freddy's inspired characters was going to be kind of difficult. Because while Monty is absolutely an alligator, and alligators are known for being in water, and his inevitable demise is by water, some of the other characters were a little bit harder to pinpoint down. I knew that I wanted to work with Freddy and Roxanne Wolf, especially being that I already went over Chica in a previous video, and I see that kind of as our early route bird Pokemon, still a big part of the team, one of the characters that most people kind of carry with them throughout, especially if it's a cool design, and I think she was. I wanted to make sure that this felt right, that the lineup of using Roxanne Wolf as a grass type felt right. I looked at the design and I looked at some of the schemes that were used in her initial design. And I also looked at some of your comments. A lot of people were noticing, hey, this doesn't feel like a starter when I worked with my Water Montgomery starter. It feels like its own Pokemon. Why? Well, because it's green, and water starters tend to be blue, grass starters tend to be green, and fire starters tend to be red. So I tuned down a little bit of the color used with Roxanne Wolf to go from that grayish blue to this grayish green, an almost navy green, if you will, maybe sage. I don't know, not good at color names. But I wanted to kind of fix that here so that it worked a little bit better, flowed a little bit smoother. And honestly, sometimes your comments are right. Not often, but sometimes. And I wanted to capture that. I wanted to make sure that I got that in here because I do agree. If it's going to be a starter, it should be green, especially if it's a grass starter. And while I don't prescribe to the whole idea of green means grass, yellow means electric, red means fire, I knew that I at least had to take it into a little bit of account with this design, and so I did. I also knew that that reddish, pinkish color was going to be a big part of the concept as well, so I wanted to get it in there as well, and I think it almost feels like a vegetable or like a beet in some way. And so here is Papan, a counterpart to our Gumgator that we saw in last week's episode. And the name Papan actually comes from the term Pan, which is a forest-dwelling mythological creature, as well as Pup. It's a grass type, of course, and is the prowl type category. For its shiny, I wanted to get more of that Roxy actual coloring because I still wanted to fit that in. But moving on, I knew that I had to evolve this Pokemon. It had to expand in concept in some way. And that becomes kind of difficult until I realized, well, I want to go more with the personality. I looked at inspiration of characters like Sprigatito and its evolutions, as well as other Pokemon like Snivy. Both of those kind of come across as these more pompous type individuals, and I wanted that here. I also thought if I'm going to incorporate this grass motif more heavily in, it needs to have some sort of flow to it. Most grass-type Pokemon are based on prehistoric animals. Not all, but that's kind of been the going theory, where it's been fire types are based on the Chinese zodiac, disproven, water types are based on weapons, not yet disproven, and grass types are based on extinct animals. Semi-proven, semi-not. But I wanted to kind of keep that in mind here, and I wanted to give it something, kind of like I said with Sprigatito, that jumps onto the motifs that we've seen already. I thought it'd be cool if it used that green sprig of hair, which is just this little element of Roxanne Wolf, and expands on it. What if that was its weapon? If it used this like thorny whip, which I don't think a lot of starters use yet. We have a lot that have their go-to weaponry, such as Sprigatito's yo-yo or Snivy's weird snake-like body, superior I should say, but I wanted to capture something that gave this some oomph, made it feel like it was dangerous, like it could be a potential threat in a fight. So I got this idea of it using its hair almost as a whip, and maybe even being able to pull out sprigs of its tail as a whip as well. And then I got these claws. I thought, oh, that is so cool, because Roxanne like swipes at you and grabs at you, and I kind of went all over, and I think it kind of works here. I'd like to think it works here. This thing feels dangerous, but it also feels like a middle form. Like there is so much going on that this is definitely that awkward teenage phase. In fact, you could even see there I tried to incorporate Roxanne's hair, and it just felt like that was going a bit too much. So I backed away a little bit. And for the colors, I wanted to capture some of the motifs that happen within Roxanne's design as well. Something that sticks out to me, apart from her being a wolf, is that she has these stripes throughout her design. She has this reddish bodysuit type thing, and she has these purple arm and leg guards that all have stripes. She also has these stripes on her face, which I realized after that I omitted, but I think it still works. I think this was a game in balance between design elements and the actual design itself. So I'm fine omitting that, because I think that those stripes work well just to emphasize the claws. And utilizing them almost as a fruit, it made it feel like it worked much more for the grass type. It has these vines, it has this fruity type of pinkish, purplish, green motif. And I think that that all works really well, especially for a grass-type Pokemon. A lot of grass-type Pokemon we've seen aren't actually like fruit-bearing or fruit-referencing, at least as far as my memory serves, and I'm sure that I'm forgetting something. I mean, Chestnut is a nut, so maybe that might work, but as far as I can tell, this would be the first that really takes into account that fruit type of energy, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I think it works, and even using that reddish color in combination with the green almost makes it feel like a dragon fruit, which, while this isn't a dragon type, still brings in that ferocity that I wanted to capture in the design. Plus, that upturned, snooty appearance really makes this Pokemon feel like Wufon. Wufon is of course a counterpart to our water type middle evolution Irrigator, but its name also is a reference to woof, the sound that a dog or wolf makes, as well as fawn, another mythological plant-based creature, or forest-based creature. For the colors, again, I wanted to capture that same type of Roxy vibe. It's still the grass type, but it won't remain that for long, as it's going to evolve in just a second, and I'm very excited to show you. But first I want to talk about some of the amazing fan art created over on the Discord, like Maxeval created by Sunny D Not The Drink, who also created this Chica evolution, which I'm pumped about. Painty went on to make this really amazing recolor of our proxy Pokemon that I love, and Liam continues to blow me away with this Siphene taking on my avatar. We also have K-Rogue showcasing their trainer and partner Pokemon, as well as Goopy the Slime taking on the puppet and our counterpart with our version of the puppet, I should say. And of course, Bugcatcher Kai went ahead and created this amazing character using the masks of various different versions of our own Five Nights at Freddy's creations. And you guys are amazing. I can't say that enough. But time waits for no man, and so eventually our middle evolution of Wufon must evolve. It must turn into something that really, I thought, encapsulates the ferocity of Roxanne Wolf. And I wanted to get that by going with kind of her more final design towards the end of Security Breach. It was difficult to do because I didn't want to cover the eyes. I felt like those bright orange eyes were such a big part of the design, and I guess that's why they're taken away in the later parts of the game. Spoilers for those of you who haven't played, sorry about that. But also, why are you here if you haven't played the game? I'm glad you're here, but just curious why. Anyway, I wanted to go in and capture that look. I wanted to get something that felt ferocious, that charging type attack that she has towards the end of those games, that blind and wild energy that she has. And so I wanted to evolve the concepts further. I ended up cutting out those big flowing locks of hair in the previous form, but here I wanted to make them bigger. This thing goes from being just kind of a fruit plant to a fruit shrub, tree, plant, I don't know, what have you. So I made the hair just big, massive. I made the head a lot bigger too, just to capture the energy that this thing is charging at you. It has the shape language that the top is so much bigger than the bottom, almost like it's always looming over you. And I think that that's really cool. It was an idea that I had and I wanted to stick with. And it's honestly one of those ideas that I didn't plan out at the beginning, but ended up coming about anyway. I think when designing Pokemon, that's a big part of it. Not just planning and having stuff prepared and knowing exactly what you want to do, but having the spontaneity to be able to just jump on board with whatever happens to flow at the time. So I did that. I also had to find a way to get this like thorny vine reincorporated back into the design. And I thought, what if now it's not just bigger? You know, I think we think about that a lot with evolution is whatever was there before, make it bigger. So here, rather than being bigger, it's more well-maintained. It's pushed back over the hair, almost as if she's always running at you. So I did that. I like to think of that kind of as the Frieza example. For those of you who aren't Dragon Ball Z fans, Frieza gets bigger and uglier and more terrifying and more monstrous as they evolve and as they change, but that final form ends up getting back to that very small, diminutive, clean look. Like it's complete. The monstrous forms were just there as these middle stages, and so here, I wanted to do the same thing. That big vine hair is now much cleaner, but it still is balanced by the ferocity and wild energy of the rest of the concept. The tail and hair I actually designed to be one long flowing piece. So now rather than just whipping a long whip of thorns at you, it's this thorny bush that just swings wildly around, almost as if in a blind rage. Get it? Blind rage? Roxanne? Blind rage? Wolf thing? I'm hoping you get it. I also wanted to extend that black part of the body that was almost like a unitard in the previous form into this like workout type suit. Roxanne is everyone's favorite, and thus I made her the grass type. I love Monty. I love Freddy, but fans really seem to just go after Roxy. She's a really cool concept, really cool design, and really cool emotion behind a character. And I'm glad that Ruin was able to further expand on that concept. And I wanted that to be a big part of this. I wanted to make sure that she felt like she could also be your friend, very similar to how she was with Cassie in the original Ruin release there. By the way, I have to say this, I'm so proud of myself that I got that in one take and didn't have to look up her name. For the life of me, I can never remember Cassie's name. I don't know what it is. I can remember Gregory, I can remember Foxy, I can remember Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, every other character throughout the series. The Stitch Wraith, which almost made it into this video, but honestly, I just ran out of time. I can recall them all. I can never remember Cassie's name, and I got it this time. So much like the relationship between Cassie and Roxanne Wolf, I wanted this design to feel like it could be ferocious, but still be your friend. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I like to think that the design works if I can imagine them joyfully hugging their trainer after winning the Pokemon League Championship. If I can imagine that, and I can imagine them not only being terrifying and scary, but also just being a little cutie pie, mission accomplished. We can go home. We finished it. We did it. It's fun. But regardless, the design process, I wanted to go with this more minty type of color for that wild and crazy hair. Again, designing this off of the more ragged Roxanne look, but still keeping some of the motifs from the initial concepts, obviously evolving the concepts used in those previous forms and expanding on them from there. And so we have Wolvine, still that prowl Pokemon and bringing in that psychic type to the grass energy. Why psychic? I hear you asking. I can hear you through the screens. Why psychic? Well, because it was the best way that I could handle the idea that this Pokemon is able to track you very, very easily. As I often do with these designs, I'm asking you in the comments, help me figure out abilities for these guys. All 3 forms need abilities, so help me do so. You guys do a great job at that. I know I don't need to ask because you guys are just on it every single time, but here I am saying that. I need something there that takes into account that she is a tracker. She don't need no eyes to find you. That's why in this design I decided to make the eyes black and orange instead of just orange to capture that whole eyes removed type of feel, I guess? I don't know. But I wanted the eyes to stay, and I need you to help me make that make sense. So I helped you out a little bit. I made her psychic type for that tracking sensory type of energy. So also the shiny goes a lot closer to what we see with Roxanne Wolf. I was actually super surprised as I went in and changed up the colors on this at how much it does resemble her. Just with those little bits of colors, just kind of removing that green and replacing it with that bluish gray did so much for reminding me, at least, oh right, this is Roxanne Wolf. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm really happy with this design, and I think it's a wonderful counterpart to our Montigator water final stage. But as always, I'm curious what you guys think. Let me know down in the comments. Would you pick Papan or would you pick Gumgator so far for your starters? We of course have to get to our fire starter. Not my favorite type of starter, but I'm hoping that by basing that off of Freddy Fazbear himself, Glamrock Freddy, we can maybe change that. That video will be coming next week alongside some other stuff. Friday, I'm gonna be dropping our Amazing Digital Circus as Pokemon video in honor of the new episode dropping, as well as it moving to Netflix, not moving, but being on Netflix as well. So stay tuned for that. I've also got some collaborations coming up for October and November that I actually need to hop on. Those will be exciting. I'm pumped for that. Also, join us down in the Discord. A lot of the fan art that you saw today comes from there, as well as just fun conversations that we have over some of our Porico ARG mystery type stuff. So if you're interested in the ARG and the mystery of what's going on with that whole series, check that out. The Discord has been going mad figuring out what this whole thing is. I'm pumped about it. You can also find me on Ko-fi as well as Patreon. Your support means a lot, and it sounds like you know where to find me. So I'll catch you in the next one. Happy spooky season!